This is episode 111 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Ian Horowitz. Ian is the co-founder of Equity Warehouse and a former fireman who figured out how to retire before 40 with his partner, Dan, by starting to use his family and friends' money. That's what we're going to talk about. Ian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, what's up, John? It's a beautiful day. I'm out here on the East Coast. It's supposed to snow, so I'm trying to be as happy-go-lucky as I possibly can be.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to share and talk, and let's do it.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I think like the most important thing is figuring out everybody's journey. When was the first time that you thought of real estate as something that could get you out of being a fireman?
Yeah, so if we go back to like when we first started, you got to remember we had a career that we could literally get killed in. Like right after we left our jobs, 3 of our friends got killed in a fire.
Wow.
2 years later, 2 more firemen got killed. One of them was our rookie. The first 3 that died, I worked with one of the ladies for 5 years together, right? So when you're sitting there and you're talking about having family, you're talking about having your wife take care of your kids. It was like, dude, I'm making like 65 grand a year. I don't have any like zero like formal education whatsoever. I barely made it out of high school. And you sit there and you think about being dismembered, like you could be dismembered, you could be out of service, you could be killed tomorrow. Like you got to remember though, I know we're jumping right into it, but
Yeah, sure.
a lot of firemen, we would work side jobs, landscaping, construction, whatever it is, trades. Do you imagine being killed or getting so incapacitated that like, hey babe, I loved you, but you got this whole business and you got to go finish these 25 jobs that we have open end? I was like, there's no way. And it really came to me and through some other friends, other acquaintances, and thinking about how can I make money while I'm asleep at work? How can I make money? God forbid something happens to me. How can I leave a legacy for my family? I just kept coming back to real estate, and I'm glad we did it because I wouldn't have this big, beautiful beard because I'd still have to be cleanly shaved for the
Right.
fire.
Yeah, and I think it's changed over the years as social media has made it a little bit more accessible for people to see that there's other ways to make money. Because for firemen, usually, or all fire people, the side jobs was the thing. But like you were saying before, you don't see scale in just doing tile work or doing the contractor. It's just a one-off. Cool. I got 5 grand. That's going to help, and you get by like that. But that doesn't help you get out of it, or even say like, okay, I get to retirement age and then I have something else to do. But I think now being able to see it, and then for you, did you see any other service people like that while you were getting kind of adjusted to real estate investing, where you said you could see, oh, look, well, they did it. Now I can do it? Because I know a lot of people find a commonality and then they're like, wait, those guys are doing it. Like, we can do it.
Yeah, I found more commonality in actual operators that were doing it, not so much, oh, that guy's a fireman and
Yeah.
it was more in other operators actually doing it. And when you look at it, it's like, cool, someone's willing to lend you this money, dude. Like on paper, like we're like worthless, but then you're willing to give me 100 grand to go do this deal. And once I started learning from some other people that did pay to go to college and had some sort of sophisticated background, it's like, man, Jack's really freaking smart. He went to Wharton School of Business. If I can only pick up like an ounce of what he tells me, like I'm good. And I would just sit there and listen to other people. I would go do the events. I would just bump elbows. And from there, that's where we got the confidence. Cause you got to remember, like sitting around a firehouse kitchen table, just imagine going to a frat house or a tailgate and you're going to hang out with your boys and they just literally talk shit. And like, when you're like, hey, man, I'm going to buy some rental real estate in the city, they're like, dude, did you just see this shithole house we were just, I apologize for cursing, but do you
No,
see the
you're
block
good.
we were just
Yeah.
in? That's going to be you. You're going to be a slumlord. So-and-so at whatever company failed doing real estate a couple years back. He went bankrupt. This horror story, this guy. Nobody ever talks about the good. And
Yeah.
everybody would tell me about the bad. And I was just like, I don't know why. Just had blinders on and said, look, that's fine. I understand, but I promise you it's going to be different. I'm going to do it different. And maybe they had those experiences. Thank you. I'll learn from them. But I have a feeling that we can do this and do it right. And at the end of all of it, when we were able to quit our jobs, it was a huge motivating factor for a lot of people to step out and say, this career isn't for me. I'm going to move on and go find another job, or I want to invest with you guys because you guys really know what you're
Yeah.
doing. And that was like the stamp of approval.
So did it help you to get out and go to these other meetups where there was none of that type of dynamic going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about this. I'd sit around the kitchen table and I'd watch chiefs in the fire department with 30 or 40 years go to my buddy who was a loan shark and a bookie and literally say, "Hey, I need a payday loan until next Friday." I'm like, "Dude, you got 30 years in the fire department, make
Yeah.
120 grand." Like that's the money education that was around there. And it was like, it was hard. And then you got so like in the fire department, we had 1,800 guys in Baltimore City. You had every walk of life, dude. They came from every single background and they lived their life in every single way. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything you see on the internet nowadays. And just seeing how people reacted around money, I wish that everybody had to read The Psychology of Money, where they had to read.
I was just listening to it yesterday.
Oh yeah, it's such a good book. It's
Yeah.
such a good book with principles. Or what we would tell is a lot of people is like, they're like, "Well, how did you and Dan do it?" We'd be like, "Okay, well, let's see your budget." And they're underwater. Like, I had to tell a rookie one time, all the guys finally got him to work up to talk to me. And I was like, "All right, man, let's talk about it." So he writes down all of his assets. He writes down all of his liabilities. I literally had to look at him and said, "You do realize you're worthless?" He's like, "Oh, that's funny." I'm like, "No, it's
It's like,
not." Like,
no, yeah, you're worth
here's
zero.
yeah, here's Dave Ramsey's book. Start here. And if you're willing to take action, then we'll help you. And I think actually that negativity and that like, it's like not because like it's your boys and you're having fun, like you were talking about.
I think it's
But
an
that
honesty.
negativity, yeah,
Yeah.
and like not wanting to be like that, and be like, there's got to be a better way. And then going to events and masterminds and sitting in rooms with people that have raised $50 million. They're doing several $1 million a year. They own 700 houses. You're like, well, if that guy can do it, yeah, he went to college. He might be a little bit smarter than me, but I feel like I can do something similar. And it was really just the two worlds colliding and taking the good from both sides and the bad from both sides and saying, this is what I like, and this is how we're going to do it. And this is our investment thesis. And off we went. But it's a lot of that comes back to being able to give back. It's a shame. A lot of guys end up in that service industry because they are good natured people. They're willing to
Yeah.
help people. Horrible money managers, right? A lot of that comes from the stuff that we see, a lot of gambling, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of just coping with a lot of things that it's like, man, like I do not want to be like that. And another thing that really resonated with me, not only from the bad money management side, it was also the guys that were there for 40, 50 years. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
institutionalized. There is no quality of life at this point. Like, why are you coming to work and having someone else tell you what to do? Like, you have 40 years on the job. Like, it's time to go. One of the lieutenants I worked with, he literally worked in the riots in the late 60s, and then he worked in the riots in the mid 2000, whatever, 2000 teen. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, lieutenant, like, that's a little insane. No, I'm the only guy to do it. I'm like, that's nothing to be proud of, man. Like, go home, go enjoy life, like, go retire. And those are the things that kept coming back to me. And another one, speaking of retirement, was, I don't know how many times you heard this around your government job. Hey, man, I'm retiring after 25 years. Cool. What are you going to do? I'm going to go work at Home Depot or Walmart, or I'm going to go work with I'm like, you're retiring to go work with someone else. Like, this does not make any sense to me. And all these things are just happening all at the same time. And I'm just going, yo, this is not right. I want to build something for ourselves and grow and go.
You got to make sure that you have everything set so it's okay to invest money, or especially like if your partner or spouse isn't on board with you dunking the money in. That brings up a good question though. When you did take your only 15 grand and invest it into the house, what did your wife think at the time? Is she on board with that? Because this is where we find where it's really helpful that usually everyone who ends up on my podcast, the family at some point is all on the same page. Like, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah, initially it was a lot of conversation of like, hey, we got 15 grand. She did say, look, it's our money too. Obviously it's easy for her to say today, I always believed in you, but I'm sure she had reservations
Yeah.
at the time in real time. But prior to that, she had bought a house before we moved to Baltimore, was able to buy it and then refinance it and then had some additional cash and then rented it out. So she kind of understood the game of what we were trying to do. Actually, one of the catalysts to us getting started was, they sold and serviced outdoor power equipment, and they had a customer that would come in every year and buy new mowers. And they said, hey, where are you this year? He's like, well, I bought a rental house for the last, a house a year for the last 30 years. Every winter I'd go buy a house when we weren't working, we'd fix it up and then we would rent it out. And 30 houses. I sold the business and I'm done. And we had a lot of conversations around that gentleman of like, yo, if he did that, like, I'm interested in doing that. At the time, our retirement was only 20 years. I was like, I literally just want to do 20 years
Yeah.
and get out. So how can we track something similar to what he did to allow us to get out and go down that road? So it's easy to say today that she was relatively supportive, but there was no like major roadblocks. There was no like blowout fights, like I'm doing this or else.
Yeah.
She was relatively on board, and trusted that we knew what we were going to do. But I agree with you, man. Like your last $15,000, you're like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll get it. Like that was always